The recently released report by the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative highlights the critical gap depriving the Federation of significant value of its oil resources, including withheld remittance, tax, and poor governance practice. NAETI noted that the total unremitted revenue of the Federation by some relevant government agencies and companies in the oil and gas sector in the year 2021 rose to over $9.8 billion. This is significant, considering the total revenue were 23 billion naira for the year. The NAETI report also detailed outstanding financial liability due to the Federation amounting to $13.591 million revenue payable to the Federation, payable to the Federal Inland Revenue Service as of July 31st, 2023, while the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission had outstanding tax collectible revenue of $8.251 billion as of December 31st, 2022. Over 80% of these outstanding financial liabilities are owned by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL. The NAETI report also observed that none of the refineries was operational in 2021, despite spending over 200 billion naira between 2020 and 2021 on refinery rehabilitation, which was deducted from the Federation sales proceeds. However, the former Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Lamido Sanusi has betrayed the NNPCL over its poor revenue remittance to the Federation accounts. He challenged the NNPCL to give account of the dollar inflow from its operation amid the rising volatile exchange rates. Welcome to Business Point, where we x-ray the activities of the Nigerian economy and its government policies. I am Kike Lomo Okeri. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Business Point, where we x-ray the government policies on Nigerian economy. Joining me in the studio this morning is Faith Nwandishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy, to throw more light into the non-remittance of oil revenue by NNPCL in Nigeria. Welcome, Ma.
Thank you so
much. Good to have you on our show this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma, last week, the former Central Bank of Nigeria, Lamido Sanusi, indicated that the NNPCL has not been remitting revenue to the government coffer. What is the implication of this?
It just shows that you have an entity that operates on its own without looking at the existing laws and legislative frameworks in the country that helps to stabilize the economy and all of that. And so this issue has been on even before NNPC became privatized because of the passage of the PIA that now made the NNPC a limited liability company. If you look at NAETI reports right from the first time they did a report, in covering 1999 to 2004, it kept showing that NNPC runs itself without looking at what the law says. So you talk about the federation account. For instance, the federation account is an account that is owned by the 3 tiers of government: federal government, state government, and the local government. And money that is accrued to the federation account, for instance, revenues that come, ought to go straight into the federation account without any deduction. But what NNPC does is that before they remit money to the federation account, they deduct, which is against the law. So most times when you carry out an audit, you find that there's underpayment from NNPC. And over the years, every year in, year out, that you have this report come out by NATI, you see that NNPC had either underpaid or they had paid themselves from money that's supposed to go to the federation account, and nothing had come out of it. And so it's not new. It's not new. It's something new that His Royal Majesty Sanusi Lamido is saying. It's been on and on. You remember when he was even central bank governor? There was one time $20 million was missing. At that time, I was actually on the international board of the EITI, because I sat on the board of the EITI for 6 years representing Anglophone Africa. I was also on the board of NATI, you know. And so each time the reports come out, there's always this back and forth with NNPC, denial, non-denial, and all of that. But I will say that that relationship has improved a lot. But the fact that we still keep having underpayments, NNPC non-remittance is an issue, and the National Assembly needs to look at this. And it even becomes more worrisome now that NNPC is a limited liability company, even though you have the Federal Minister of Finance and Federal Minister of Petroleum, who are the fiduciary agents on behalf of the people, because the resources, the asset we're looking at is an asset that belongs to Nigerians. The oil and gas is ours, but the Constitution has given the federal government the authority to oversee it on our behalf. So the federal government agency that is overseeing it, as enshrined in the PIA, is the Federal Ministry of Petroleum and the Federal Ministry of Finance. So NNPC cannot say, okay, we are now, NNPC cannot operate like all of the other multinationals. NNPC is still a people, the Nigerian people own the NNPC. So they cannot say they're not responsible or accountable to the Nigerian people. And through the ways they can be accountable to the Nigerian people is through the National Assembly, you know, and our eyes on the NNPC board is actually the Federal Minister of Finance and the Federal Minister of Petroleum.
But the thing is, despite the lawmakers' intervention on this unremitted income, the sales still stood at $9.85 billion. What can be done to address this issue?
We need to okay, let me take us back history lane a little bit. When President Olusegun Obasanjo was president, actually he was the one that initiated Nigeria's joining the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative at the global level. 2002 we started that practice, and by 2007 when he was leaving, he signed the law, the first law ever in the world to legislate on the EITI process. So when the first reports came out that did that, and the native authorities then went to government to say, government can actually get this money back. We are looking at money to run our economy, money to fund our budget. We don't have, and people are owing this, money. So you have a situation whereby you need to have political will. For instance, if the president sits down and gives an order to say, this money has to be remitted, it will be remitted, you know. And then you just last week, the National Assembly issued a bench warrant for the GMD, the CEO of NNPC and some other people. So what are we supposed to do? Who is supposed to, you know, activate that bench warrant? It's not the National Assembly members themselves that will go to activate that. You have the police, you have the courts, you have people who are supposed to arrest these people, because that's what what they've said, that these people are supposed to come and give an account to Nigerians, because they are supposed to be representatives of Nigerians. So we have said these people need to come and tell us why they are not remitting, why things are not going the way they are going. We have invited them, they have not come. That is impunity in itself, and they are breaking the law, and we have issued a bench warrant. By now, I'm supposed to be hearing, oh, this person has been arrested, this person has been arrested, but nothing has happened there. So along the entire value chain of all of this, you see one person is saying, oh, it is not my responsibility, but you see government or governance itself is a collective where the people is at the center, because you have the members of the National Assembly, you know, overseeing things on behalf of the people, because they are our direct representatives. Then you have the judiciary and the executive. So if at the executive council meeting you sit down to say this is what is happening, $9.8 billion, we're talking about $1 billion. You know what the exchange rate is right now. So it becomes a problem. And some of these issues that we have, if you go back, you will see that there are issues that have been recurring right from when we started implementing the EIT. And I tell Nigerians that the EITI is one initiative, positive initiative that Nigeria has implemented that has opened our eyes to the opaqueness of the oil and gas sector. Before now, we didn't even have reports. Now you can say, oh, people were talking about the issue of subsidy. Are we having the number of, like they said, 60 million liters, 65 million liters is what we are paying subsidy. Now we have 4 refineries in the country. And then these 4 refineries, when they were built, it was built to produce 445,000 barrels per day. Now, let me break it down for people to understand. When you have 445,000 barrels, 1 barrel of crude, 1 barrel of crude that you have will give you PMS, the one that we put in our vehicle, will give you aviation, will give you diesel, will give you kerosene, will give you so many other products. That's 1 barrel. Now, if you take 445,000 barrels, per day is supposed to give us about 70 million liters of petrol only, aside the other things. It means that if our refineries were working, they were supposed to refine those 445,000 barrels that is produced from the oil fields and have Nigerians have fuel. And then we have even excess to export. But you remember there was a time we even started importing fuel from Niger. From Niger, yes. Niger, and we were shouting, I think about 5,000 liters or so per day. And we are shouting that if we had our 445,000 barrels refined for us, we have over 70,000 liters per day. And if you are paying subsidy on 65 million liters, so there will be no need for you to pay that 65 million liters. And you know there was also that problem when the Navy Customs came out to say, oh, we are not using up to that amount. It is because of this impunity. Nobody is holding anybody accountable, and NNPC gets away with it. So when you have a government agency, as it were before when NNPC was there, and that's the reason why a lot of us also advocated for the unbundling of NNPC. You had NNPC at the center before it became NNPCL now, that was in charge of DPR, which is the regulator. NNPC was a player and a regulator. It's just as if you have somebody who is playing on the field, you have the referee at the same time, a player on the field at the same time is the goalkeeper. Out of all of those things. So when you have that kind of situation, definitely you have the kind of situation that we see now. But it is time, and I'm really happy that we're discussing this. It is time that we let Nigerians know, especially the National Assembly. And you know that for all of these years, these issues have been coming out. This is actually the first time the National Assembly is discussing a native report at plenary. The committee is taking it. That means now people understand that this is what we have to do. We are saying that, for instance, last year, 2 years ago, we were not able to meet OPEC quota for our production. And just last month, OPEC has further brought down the volume of our production. And we have based our budget. You know, our budget is really based on how much we sell and how much we produce. Now, the budget for 2024 is put at production of oil for 1.7 million. For 1.7 million, and we have not been able to meet up with that. Now, because we have not been able to meet up with that, OPEC has further brought down our quota, meaning that since OPEC has brought down our quota, we cannot do 1.7 million per day to meet up our budget. Already we're having problems. And there's this $9.8 billion somewhere that we are supposed to... That is lingering somewhere. That is lingering. So, when you ask about its impact, it's very clear. It means, one, we may not be able to implement our budget. The budget that Mr. President has said is a budget that will address poverty, look at children, and of course security, these 3 areas. Even though we have said some of the priorities that the budget should look at, it has not looked at. But right now, we are already in a crisis because we don't even know how we are going to get money to finance the budget.
Okay, ma, talking about the subsidy. Now the subsidy has been removed. Where is the money?
Okay, so that's a question every Nigerian has been asking. In 2012, I was one of those who went to the streets to protest that the subsidy shouldn't go. But by 2015, I began to really understand why subsidy should go. And that was why personally and my organization, we engaged all of the presidential candidates. Every opportunity we had, we engaged. The only question we're asking is, subsidy, what are you going to do? And they will tell you first and foremost, we are removing. So the next question was, how are you going to do that? Nobody was able to give us a reply about how we are going to do that. Now, subsidy is gone, like what we have heard. And we see how much we're buying petroleum products outside. But also remember that while we're talking about subsidy going, there is the increase in our exchange rate.
Exchange rate, yes.
Exchange rate has gone. And so, these are the things that impact on the cost, landing cost of petroleum products that we have. It's a shame that in a country like ours, a big nation, a crude oil nation, that we are importing crude. I mean, we're importing refined product rather than exporting refined product. We have 4 refineries that will meet our domestic need. So when you do that, you will import, and when it gets back to the country, it gets on a higher rate. So now subsidy has gone. It is not, we're not going to immediately see the gains of that. Like it's not like, oh, you put 10 naira in your bank and then tomorrow you save 20 naira, you go to the bank and you get 20 naira. There are things that have to be done before we begin to now see the gains that we get from this issue of subsidy. But the fundamental problem we had was there was no clear plan on the ground on how we're going to manage this removal of subsidy, the impact it will have on the citizens. We did not have mid-term cushioning of the impact on citizens. And that's why, as we are all suffering the whole thing about subsidy removal, people think that, oh, because the president said, I'm removing subsidy, the next day you wake up to a wonderful world. No, it doesn't happen like that. Because this issue of subsidy has been on for so many years. It's just like you build a house. You have a beautiful place here. Now somebody brings in a bulldozer. It will take like 5-10 minutes to bring it down. But they forget that this building was put up over the years. So, and you know, when you begin to see the defects, it also comes that way. You don't see the impact immediately. So what we need to hear and say is that we need more accountability on how much we have saved, what has happened, so that you begin to build some little kind of trust. Because there's real trust deficit. Even if government comes out to say we are saving money, we are not saving money, nobody wants to believe them. They just want to see the result of that. But all I'm just saying is, let us be patient. Definitely we will see the impact of this. Just imagine if we had taken subsidy away in 2012. By now, we would have stabilized. By now, we would have stabilized and would have begun to see the benefits of the removal of subsidy. But I tell you, wake me up from sleep any day. The best thing to have happened to our oil and gas sector was to remove the subsidy.
Okay, before we go on a short break, ma, how do we close the gap between in the Nigerian oil revenue management? How do we close that unearthly gap?
It's to have transparent processes in place. It's to have a National Assembly that plays their oversight properly. It's to be able to punish people, bring out what is in the law that says if you contravene this law, whoever, whether it's my brother, my sister that is there that have done something wrong, we should be able to come out to say, this is what has happened and this is how it should go. We shouldn't have a situation whereby certain people are benefiting from that, you know, and some of the kind of decisions that we take, because perhaps it's somebody that we know or somebody that we don't know. Just 2 days ago, we celebrated anti-corruption, the World Anti-Corruption Day. We should shine the light, because according to Professor Asisa Sobie, he said, you know, sunshine cures a lot of things. If you have stain on your cloth, wash it, put it on in the sun, and within some time it fades away. So when we remove that opaqueness within our processes, the native report also talked about the processes, some things that had happened within the processes that allow for this kind of things to happen. We need to be more transparent in our accounting and hold people accountable on that national duty or whatever they have asked them to do on our behalf as citizens. And then citizens also should understand that when you are saying this thing is wrong, it's not because we are saying it because of the person that is there. You say, some people come and say, oh, this is wrong. Before you know it, another group of people will come out to say, it is right. Don't punish this person. It's our brother, it's our sister. unless we move away from that mentality, we may not be able to get it right, and we'll continue to suffer it. And we may, the future generation may even suffer much more than, like we are suffering now, much more than our parents suffered. Because when they tell you about the way their lives were, is different from, I don't know the kind of story I will tell my child now, you know. So we need to have that collective responsibility to demand for accountability for the right things to be done.
All right, so we'll go on a short break now. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Nigeria and other developing nations are set to benefit from the United States of America's pledge of $3 billion in Climate Investment Fund at the COP28 summit in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris stated over the weekend that her country is committing $3 billion in climate fund to developing nations to mitigate gas emission and climate change. This climate change financing initiative is coming on the heel of the recent announcement by the UAE government to inject $30 billion into climate-related projects in developing nations. Speaking with other stakeholders at the COP summit, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assured global partners that Nigeria is committed to ending gas flaring as well as promoting greenhouse initiatives in the energy sector. The Nigerian naira reached a new historical low on Friday, December 8, 2023, closing at 1,099 naira per dollar in the official market. This represents a significant depreciation of 23.29% compared to its previous closing rate, marking a concerned trend just 17 days before Christmas. This marks the first time the naira has crossed the 1,000 naira to a dollar threshold, signifying a significant depreciation and raising concern about its impact on the economy. This development represents a major turning point on its history of naira, as it has never before reached such a low exchange rate. Despite recent efforts by the Central Bank of Nigeria to bolster the foreign exchange market, the naira downward trajectory continues, raising anxiety over its impact on the upcoming holiday season, traditionally characterized by the increased consumer spending and reliance on imported goods. Despite a challenging macroeconomic environment marked by high inflation, political uncertainty, and foreign exchange scarcity, the Nigerian stock exchange market has remarkable resilience in the first 11 months of the year 2023, and it's on track to end the year bullish. The year-to-date return to the NGX All-Share Index at the end of November stood at an impressive 39.25%. This development has pushed the market at its 15-year high of outperformed some emerging markets, resulting in leading 10 stockbroking firms in the Nigerian stock market earning a whopping of 24.102 billion naira in the first 11 months of the year. This represents a significant increase from the same period in 2022, when the top 10 brokers earned 19.779 billion naira in the commission. Despite concerns such as rising inflation rate hike and apprehension surrounding the fallout of the 2023 general election, investors' confidence remains strong, leading to increased buying activities. This was affiliated by the exchange of 131.349 billion naira shares with a total value of 1.785 trillion naira during the period under review. This figure represents 54.95% of the total value recorded between January 1, 2023 and November 30, 2023. Kike Lomo Okere, Global Television News. You're welcome back. This is Global Point on Global TV in Abuja, Federal Capital Territory. This is Business Point on Global Television. We've been speaking with Faith Nwandishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. We've been speaking on impact on revenue, non-remittance on Nigerian economy. Ma, what is the metric of measuring crude oil production, and how accurate is it, or otherwise?
Okay, so that's it's called metering. That's another problem that forever native reports have always brought out. One, the first fundamental thing is that we don't have accurate measures for the oil that we produce. Though I think it's NUPRC that has come out to say they have started putting in place some of these meters that will help us to do accurate measuring. So this is what happens when you produce crude. It comes with impurities, water, and all of that. We all know that in elementary chemistry, or so when you're doing that, there's what they call distillation. And so when you want to separate liquids, there's a way at what temperature you separate them. So once you have produced, and you know the volume of what you have produced, by the time you go through the process of separation, you should be able to know the volume of crude, the volume of impurities, the volume of water, and know that this is the volume of crude that you have. But what we have had over the years is that, just very simply put, you have a well in your house. You know the capacity of that well, or let's say this tank that you use for storage, you know, before you buy, you know the capacity of it. So you put water in there, or you produce, as you produce, you put water. You know that this is the maximum capacity that this well will take. So at the point you bring tankers to take water from that well, you are not looking at the capacity of water that you have in that well. You are looking at the capacity of what the tanker has taken away. And now say it is what the tanker has taken away that you have produced. That's what is happening. So you are not saying that this my 1,000 liters capacity tank, I have produced 1,000 liters. But you have a tanker that will come and take 250 liters of fuel. You will now go and record that it is 250 liters you have produced instead of 1,000 that you have produced. So that is in its simplest form. That's how to explain it. So when you continue to do that, what it means is that whoever is producing is the one that is cashing out with your own products. You don't even have the capacity to understand that this person, this well, have the capacity to produce 1,000. This can produce 2,000. But because you now take all of those to the terminal point where you have those ships and batches, they come to take it away, you record what those ships are taking as your daily production. So unless we have meters at wellhead that we measure what exactly is being produced, you are able to know that this is what I am producing. So that when you are taking it away, you know that this is what has gone away. You are not recording what is going away as your production, but you are recording your real production. And then when you now talk about the issue of oil theft, because it depends on production now, we have gone to meetings where these IOCs say that once they take away the crude from here, that they know which oil company has produced what crude. There's a way that there's a technology they use. So that if it is Chevron that has produced, if it's Shell that has produced, there's ExxonMobil that has produced, if you take it out of the shores of Nigeria, you say, I want to know which company produced this crude. You know they have the technology to do it. So how is it that we are not able to know that this crude that is being stolen is because of this company that is producing, this person's crude that they are stealing, this other person's crude that they are stealing, because of that technology that we don't have. In other climes, so they're also doing oil and gas. Once there's a problem, wherever, they are able to detect it from the system they are put. Where MUPRC have said that I have put some of this system in place, I've not seen it. I've not seen the workability. I've not seen the workability of this. But this is what we need to do so that we can begin to talk about the accountability of all of these things that are happening. So that if Nigeria is saying we're producing 1.2 million liters per day of crude, we're producing, you know, it is actually what we're producing from wellhead before we go to the terminal point where they take it away from that. So, and at the end of the day, you also have to be able to say, this is what we have done. And you see, if of all of this production that we do in the country, that is where we reserve that 445,000 that we are supposed to use. Now, this is what happened. In the past, NNPC said they are doing what they call swap deal. Swap deal, our refineries are not working. So you have a refinery somewhere. Come and take these 445,000 barrels. Go and produce and bring us crude. We know that, like I said earlier, I laid the premise earlier that when you produce 1 barrel of crude, you have kerosene, diesel, you know, aviation fuel, you have even this fuel, and so many other products that you have. Now you send out 445,000 barrels of crude, and you bring back to us, let's say 65,000 liters of PMS, which is petrol. What about the other byproducts? Are we not costing them? Why do we have to keep paying that amount of subsidy when we are talking about the issue of subsidy, why were we paying that amount of subsidy when we have not accounted for those other byproducts that is supposed to come from that 445,000 barrels you have taken? So in other places, if they have done proper negotiation, you know, you could have said, okay, this other byproduct that is coming from this crude that we are giving to you, we can use that to augment for the volume of petrol that you are bringing for us. But it's not. But it's not. So why is it not? So that is why this issue of metering is very important. Nigerians need to know what is our actual volume of production per day. What are the issues that we are having? How much is the landing cost? How much is the landing cost of PMS in the country? Why are we selling at the amount of money that we are selling? And why are things going this way that they are going? Why is it that we send out our crude and we are not able to get equal volume for the crude that we have sent? And I told you that 445,000 barrels we send up a day can give us 70 million liters of petrol only. I've not talked about the other byproducts. 70 million liters of petrol from that 445,000 barrels. It will give us.
So in all of this, what is the role of OIC? What is their stand in all of this?
Okay, so you have the multinationals. I guess that's what you mean by the OICs, the multinationals. We have signed contracts with them. It is the contract that we sign with them that they are going to implement. If I sign a contract with you and you are not playing proper oversight on me, will I give you what you expected to get? You give me a bottle of water. I said, the volume of what I have is in this water. I go and hide here and say, you see this thing, I was supposed to get this volume, but I'm only getting from here to here. And you don't have the technology to find out that I'm hiding some. What will I do? I will pay you from here to here. That is what is happening to us. So if we sign contracts, we have said this is what should happen at what point in time, how do you do that? And you have patriotic and committed Nigerian officers that you put to say, go there and do this. And not officers that are waiting for, oh, what am I going to get out of this? How much am I going to get out of this? If you want to go to offshore, is the company that will give you a helicopter to fly there. You will the hotel that you will stay is the company that will pay for you. And you're supposed to go and pay oversight. The company will give you their report. You will look at their report and just sign off on their report and make that your report when you have not gone to verify because you don't have the equipment to go and verify. How do you think that you will get value for money? So it is important. That's why initiatives like the EITI is very important, where you have some of these things coming up, you know, and all of that. Look at, there was a transaction we had, I think it was OPL 245. OPL 2 is a very common case that everybody knows about. We go in, okay, we want to dispose of this. Somebody signs the money and doesn't pay the full money into the Federation account. We had to wait for a court in London. For a court in London to discover that this is also an amount of money, and that case has been going on, you know. So we need to have government, you know, exercise real political will. Look at this sector. This is our own golden geese that lays our own golden egg. And if we don't take care of it, nobody will help us to take care of it. We need to revive it. Because these are the things. Just imagine, do you know that at the same time we started exporting, that's the late 50s, when we started exporting about 5,000 liters per day of crude. The first production we had at Oloibri, the first commercial production of crude we had was at Oloibri in Bayelsa State. If you go to that place, you won't even recognize it. In other climes, they have turned that place to a tourist attraction where people can go, you have hotels, people can pay, generate revenue even to maintain that. But the only thing you can see there, just that wellhead that produced that 5,000 liters per day as at that time. At that same time, we were producing 5,000 liters per day was when Norway started. Norway has gone way beyond. Norway now even has an international oil company that is even working right now in Nigeria and working in other places. That is what our own NNPC should be. NNPC should go to other countries and get licenses, just like these IOCs are having licenses to exploit their oil and do the same thing that other companies are coming to our country here in Nigeria to do. But they are not doing that. So we need to look at one. We have signed the EITI process in Nigeria. Nigeria has signed to have contract transparency. NNPC, before it became NNPC Limited, we have what we call the Open Government Partnership. Yeah. NNPC signed on to that Open Government Partnership and committed by themselves that they were going to open contracts, direct sales, direct purchase contracts. Those contracts, what it meant, those people who were bringing in crude for us, the contract that they signed. We did an FOI to NNPC then and said, NNPC, okay, now you have by yourself, nobody pushed you to say you are going to open up this contract for people to see. Please, can you give us this contract? They went and got one very big lawyer to write back to us. As I speak to you, meanwhile, in that, it is an international document. They made that, nobody pushed them. They made that commitment. They were going, as part of their commitment to open contract transparency, that they were going to allow citizens access to that contract that allows people to bring in crude to this, refined products to this country. We wrote and wrote and wrote. Do you know you are supposed to do this? We're quoting law. They were quoting law back at us. And do you know how much NNPC would have paid to that big lawyer just to reply to that letter for us? Just to reply to that letter for us. So when we make commitments, international or national or even local, any commitment we make, we should be committed to ensuring that these things are done. NNPC is now a supporting company of the EITI at the global level. EITI, Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, meaning that you want to be transparent in all of your work that you are doing. But we have not seen that. So citizens, it falls back again on citizens and on the National Assembly to make sure that they play the fundamental mandate of the National Assembly is to hold these people accountable on behalf of us Nigerians. That is their fundamental mandate.
Ma, what is the implication of the statement made by NSA Nuhu that Nigeria loses 400 barrels per day on crude oil?
Well, even 400, is it 400 or 400,000?
400,000.
400,000, yes. 400,000 barrels per day. These are the things we're talking to you about crude oil theft, but I guess it has reduced a little bit. But for us to even lose 1 barrel means that we cannot meet our, that's why year in, year out, we have not been able to implement our budget 90%. Because budget is, and just like you're making a proposal. It's a proposal that this is what I want to spend next year. And this is where I hope I will get the money to spend it. And most times the hope for our budget implementation is on oil. So let's say you are producing 1.4 million or 1.3 million or 1.2 million barrels per day and you're losing 400,000. As at 2012, 2013, I'm telling you, the loss of crude we're having in this country was just about 4%. But as at last year, we started hearing about 70%. So we just sat down and folded our hands, and we were losing from 4% to 70%. And at this period, this was when the period that the budget for security of all these oil pipelines and everything skyrocketed. So how come that at the time you are giving more money for security, that's when you are losing more? Those are the fundamental things we should be asking. Why should a country like Nigeria be losing crude? My sister, see this crude that they are stealing, if they don't steal it in jerry cans like this, oh, it's not 50 liters jerry can, oh, it's not even 100 liters jerry can. It's ship. Ship that is bigger than this building. 7-story, 8-story building ship that they used to steal these things. And somebody said they are coming to steal. They come to steal. Maybe with this kind of, so they'll steal it and go. You can say, yes, that is stealing. But not that you will put a big ship that you can see with radar, you can see with the drone, you can see anywhere. You are saying, and say they have come to steal 400,000 liters of crude. Is not my mind. It's something that you cannot steal with 50 jerry. Even if you use these drums that they used to buy diesel, you cannot use it to steal it. They steal it with ships. And there is a network that goes there. So how come people that are paid security-wise and all that cannot see that ship? It is only when, like recently, when we started hearing that they went and burnt sheep and all. It is after that kind of sheep have stolen and is going away that you now catch it and say they stole and went to burn it. So we need to. I think say this thing is the National Assembly that would do, because that's where the power is. The National Assembly. In
your own opinion, how do you think we can curb this crude oil theft? Because it's a year-on-year issue. It's been there. Exactly. So how do we curb it? How do we put it to a stop?
Unfortunately, we have slept while the people came and sowed wide oats among the real thing that we have. They have come to spoil the system. We have slept on it for too long. So the people who are in this, remember President Yar'Adua called them a cabal.
Yes.
That was when he mentioned the cabal in the oil and gas sector. Unfortunately, with his death, we have further strengthened that cabal, and new people have entered there that are even stronger than the old people that are there. But there's no one individual that is bigger than a country or the laws of a country. As far as we continue to have people who can do and undo, and then leave them and you now use the same law to hunt the smaller people, we can never get out of this. We need to implement our laws, hold people accountable, and ensure that they face the music of whatever sound they have decided that the country should play. So we should have strong laws. We have the PIA there, we have our constitution, we have the law enforcement agencies, we have the security agencies. All of these people should come together and bring out solutions to bring that. I tell you, when we have one or two big wigs, big names, and you bring them that this is what they have done, I'm telling you, others will go and hide. But as far as it's the small crayfish that we are catching, the shark in the fish will continue to operate.
All right, lastly, before we go, ma, in your own opinion, what is your advice to the government to ensure that the refineries are working?
Okay, the first thing to do is to do a full assessment of the refineries and see where we have gone wrong. What is it? The president had promised that the refineries will work by December, but this has always been by now there should have been a report about the challenges with the refinery, and then put resources together on how to ensure that these refineries work. If there are people who are found wanting, prosecute them. And let Nigerians know that you have prosecuted them and set in motion these refineries to work. People who are there for years receiving salaries and getting promoted, fire them. Fire them. Let them refund that money they have collected for staying in a place that is redundant and it doesn't concern them. And I tell you, anybody that's working in a system that doesn't work and the person gets paid and gets commended, the person will not want that system to ever work. Yeah. But once you go there and ensure that things begin to work, look at the bad eggs, bring them out, prosecute them, and I'm telling you that will be one way to be on the right track. And I'm sure Mr. President has the political will and the might to be able to do that. And the National Assembly, from what I see them doing, this 10th National Assembly, I see that there's a lot of promise. My expectation has increased a little bit on what they can deliver. I hope that they will go further and ensure that those expectations are met.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, I appreciate your coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
All right, moving on crude oil production and export. The NAITI report indicated that total meter crude oil production was 634.60 million barrels, out of which nation lost 68.47 million barrels to production adjustment, measurement, error, theft, and sabotage. The report pointed out that a total of 29 companies suffered crude oil losses from theft and sabotage amounting to 37.57 million barrels. The decline in the oil losses due to theft and sabotage from 39.08 million barrels in 2020 to 37.57 million barrels in 2021 was generally due to the decline in crude oil production during the period. NAITI also noted that some revenue were lost because some companies that won marginal field license in 2021 did not pay signature bonuses, while 4 companies whose names were not on the list of the awardees made payments. Hence, NAITI said the NNPCL should be transparent, disclose details of the subsidy and the beneficiary of payment, render accounts on Project Eagle loan transaction, and review and investigate all pre-export financing arrangements and other loan arrangements done in the exchange for the nation's crude oil and gas. This is where we draw the curtain on Business Point today. Until I come your way again tomorrow, I am Kike Lomo Okeri. Good morning.